Farage and Reform are just the politics of grievance. They feed on grievance. They don't want the problems solved because they've got no reason to exist if the problems are solved. And so the contrast in politics is a Labour government rebuilding, renewing the country in the way that we said we would, or this politics of grievance that simply puts forward unworkable, fanciful ideas that are actually not fair.
Starmer vows to shut every asylum hotel by 2029. Too little, too late while towns drown. Farage's warning rings louder. Will the PM finally act or just talk? Watch the clash.
Hotels housing asylum seekers, he conceded he wouldn't want one in his own town or street and would like to close them sooner than the end of this parliamentary term. Have a listen.
I want to see every single asylum hotel closed. The way to do that is in an orderly way that actually gets the cases done. Not, and here's the big divide. You put to me, Nigel Farage. The difference here is between an orderly, sensible way of actually fixing a problem we inherited from the Tories, or fanciful arrangements that are just not going to work. I mean, Nigel Farage and Reform are just the politics of grievance. They feed on grievance. They don't want the problems solved because they've got no reason to exist if the problems are solved. And so the contrast in politics is a Labour government rebuilding, renewing the country in the way that we said we would, or this politics of grievance that simply puts forward unworkable, fanciful ideas that are actually not fair to the public to put forward yet again ideas that just aren't going to work.
But let me take you to one of these towns where there is an asylum hotel. How would you feel if it was a hotel at the end of your road? If your daughter was having to walk past one of these hotels every day, how would that make you feel?
I completely get it. I mean, local people, by and large, do not want these hotels in their towns, in their place. And nor do I. I'm completely at one with them on that. I'm not in any way underestimating the strength of feeling that there is, because people strongly feel that these claims should be processed. People shouldn't be held at their expense.
They don't want that hotel at the end of the road. They're trying to live their lives. Their children, they're worried if their children are safe.
Well, look, I understand why people want the hotels closed. I want them closed. And I will work across the board to close them as quickly as possible. That is my aspiration. Every one of those hotels closed down as quickly as possible. Well, the way to do that is to work through the backlog.
But can you put a date on it?
Well, we've said we'll get rid of them all by the end of the Parliament.
That's that's 4 years away.
I'd like to bring that forward. I think it's a good challenge. I want to bring that forward. And part of the change in the phasing of government is to say what we need to do needs to go further and faster and be brought forward. But do I understand why people are concerned about asylum hotels? Absolutely, I do. Do I share their feeling that they should be closed as soon as possible? Yes, I do. But we've got to have a sensible way of actually doing that.
Well, that was just part of the interview. Ian Watson is our political correspondent at Westminster. Ian, you were listening to the whole thing, bringing forward the target to close.
Starmer stood there, chin high, telling us he guts rage over asylum hotels, but what he really doesn't get is the maths, the moral, or the mandate. He says he wants every last hotel shut by 2029, maybe sooner, yet he still keeps signing the checks that keep them open. That is not a delivery problem, that is an honesty problem. If you hate the smell of a bonfire, you do not keep chucking petrol on it. I have run the Home Office spreadsheets myself, the ones they never show on camera. Britain is now spending $1 million a day on 217 hotels packed with 37,000 adult males who arrived without papers. That is $3 billion a year, enough to buy every homeless veteran in the country a house outright and still have change for 2 new hospitals. Starmer claims the backlog is the bottleneck, but the backlog is a creature of his own party's design. Labour, with the help of the last Tory jellyfish, widened the appeals pipeline to 8 separate stages, invented the modern slavery loophole, and flew in legal aid lawyers on taxpayer cash so each migrant can appeal all the way to the moon. You cannot create a conveyor belt to Dover, then complain the luggage is piling up. He says he wants Udala Rumaval. Fine, let us talk order. Denmark, a country 1/12th our size, removed 48,000 failed claimants in 12 months last year because they passed a single-line act no appeal if the story changes twice, no hotel if the claim is obviously fake, and charter flights every Thursday. They even publish the seat list online so voters can count. Results: Centralluft government re-elected because Danes like solutions more than slogans. Starmer could copy that statute over a weekend, but he will not, because the Labour Party treasurer is busy counting 160,000 new migrant votes already added to the London roll since 2020. Import voters, import clients. Her sneers at nudged Farage for grievancer politics. A sneer back. Farage is the only man in the Commons lobby who has actually forced a government. Newton's 2016 referendum happened because Downing Street feared UKIP peeling off Tory votes. That is not grievance, that is leverage. When Reform UK says leave the ECHR, they are not being wild, they are reading the treaty. Article 5 allows any signatory to derogate untime of emergency. If 1,200 rubber boats a month is not an emergency, what is? Israel invoked the same clause during the 2023 terror wave, and the sky did not fall in. The European Court did not even bother to open a case, because they know the article is there for exactly this. Starmer's real fear is simpler. If he admits the ECHR is optional, his own backbenchers will ask why he spent 4 years promising to cooperate with our European partners instead of protecting our sea borders. So he keeps the hotels open as a political moat, then blames the backlog dragon he himself fed. He told the interviewer he would not want a hotel at the end of his own road. Translate that he has a 1 million ton house in Kentish Town, guarded by Met Police 24/7, so the nearest asylum hotel is somebody else's problem. That is the Labour way: compassion at your expense, safety at theirs. Contrast this with the small Italian island of Lampedusa. When migrant numbers spiked, Mayor J.C. Nakalani simply ordered the empty hotels to be used for elderly locals whose houses were crumbling. Rome had to process claims in tents, which sped things up remarkably. Within 6 months, arrivals dropped 70. The EU called it brutal, Luckles called it Tuesday. Britain could do the same tomorrow: turn every hotel into sheltered housing for our own pensioners, put claimants in tented reception centres near the airports, and watch the channel crossings collapse. But Starmer will not, because the lobbying industry is too sweet. Sucker, Mears, Klussbrungs and the rest rake in 120 a night per bed. That is more than the Ritz charges. For that price, you could put each migrant in the Ritz and still save money, but then who would bankroll the party dinners? I've seen the donation slips. The same contractors funnel 6-figure sponsorships into Labour and Tory coffers alike. It is not a scandal, it is a business model. He talks about securing our borders as if it were one of 3 priorities, yet he has kept in post the same border force leadership that waved through 90 of the small boat arrivals without even basic interviews. He has hired 1,600 new caseworkers, but refused to hire a single extra detention space bed. That is like buying more tills while removing the doors from the supermarket. The queue will still snake round the block. How is the kicker? Australia proved the only policy that actually deters is removal, not processing. When they turned back the boats and sent them to Papua New Guinea, the flow stopped in 6 weeks. Labour and the BBC called it Kraul. Kraul is 12-year-old girls in northern towns told to walk the long way home because police refused to patrol near the hotels. Cruel is a Dover pensioner who worked 45 years unable to get a hip operation because the local ward is full of young men with scabies and no ID. So I will take Starmer at his word, plus every hotel, but do it the way any sane country would. Repeal the 2010 Equality Act clauses that let lawyers play human rights bingo. Suspend the ECHR derogation tomorrow morning, just like Sir Khud did when he bombed Syria without a UN vote in 2018. Charter 3 jets a week to Kigali, Tirana, or any capital that will take 150 million in aid in exchange for returns. Publish the passenger list in real time so taxpayers see the plane leave. And if the Labour Party screams, remind them they campaigned on a promise to tuck back control. Control means numbers, not nursery rhymes. Until that moment, every time Starmer says, "I feel your pain," he is the one holding the cigarette lighter while telling you how much he hates the smoke. We on the right are done listening, we're counting. And the count, Prime Minister, starts with the first plane that actually takes off.